Hello and welcome everyone to Ice Cave Radio. Doa here along with CHARM3R back for another episode. Episode what, 78 now or something like that, right? I always forget each week. You'd think I'd remember one of these times, but either way, we're back. We're talking about Star Wars Unlimited. Have you gotten a chance to play a couple games over the last week? I know it was busy. I know you had a birthday in the family there. I know you had animals appearing out of nowhere. Did you get any games in though?
No. I mean, not during the week. So the last time I got games in was Sunday, before I started recording Flesh and Pod with Logan. I was just messing around on Carabast, but through this work week, and we're recording this Friday night, I have not gotten any games in. As you said, my day job's been very busy. My youngest son turned 9 on Wednesday. We adopted a new cat. It's the kids are on spring break. Just did not find time for games, and it haunts me.
Yeah, I feel that too. I've tried to get in as much as I could. I did get to my locals, so I did get to do that. It was draft though this week, so I didn't get to play the Vader Cunning deck that I really wanted to play. I ended up drafting Von Reg Cunning instead, and because I ended up being the only person drafting Villainy. So I got a pretty good deck, I felt like, but I ended up going 2-1 because I ran into a Nasaj in the first round that just did not let me keep a single unit on the board, and like sometimes that happens in limited. But yeah, I had a pretty good night overall. Got to play a couple games with the decks I brought along just on the side. I made a Holdo deck because I've got the showcase, so why not? Played a couple games with her, and it's like, yeah, it's fun to do resistance tricks. There's some fun combos in that. Resistance is very kind of combo oriented, you know. But obviously, if you're gonna play someone resistance affiliated, you're probably gonna play Poe. So and I traded my beloved Boba 2 showcase. I traded for a Poe showcase, so now I get to be committed to Poe Dameron. It's a leader I've been wanting to play and take a little bit more seriously for a while. I think it's good, and so we're gonna be pushing that over the coming weeks and see how we do. But yeah, so I got some Star Wars Unlimited in, not as much as I'd like, but that's always the case, right?
Yeah, I seem to think that that's just always the case, no matter what.
It will be. Yeah, you can never play enough. And I'm still working on Akbar. Still trying to find a way. There's me and one other person I know has the Akbar showcase. So we've been trying to brainstorm ways to make Akbar work, and there are ways, but he's such a tricky leader to pilot. He's really, really hard to play well, and I think that's actually like the biggest speed bump is that. You can build good decks with him, but piloting him well, using that leader ability, knowing like when to exhaust their unit and give them a token, when to exhaust your unit and give yourself a token, when to just not use it. That's some very, very complex play patterns across the decks. So I've been tinkering and playing, but nothing I've really felt, super good about yet, but I won't give up.
I think I need to get an Akbar showcase myself and join the team with trying to make it work, simply because with that purple tint, right? That purple haze, if you will, on the showcase. And
beautiful.
I said the last time, it's my favorite color. I'm going to christen it the Grimace Gang, because he kind of looks like Grimace. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been thinking about it. He kind of looks like Grimace, right? He's got the big round head, kind of a little bit purple. And I think I want to join the Grimace Gang.
When I hear purple, I just think Prince, because I'm from Minnesota originally. That's the land of Prince, and he loved the color purple. So that's where I go with it. I don't think Admiral Akbar resembles Prince really at all. But they both
probably not.
Apparently have an affinity for purple. So, and I'm sure if Admiral Akbar heard Prince, if he listened to Prince, he'd be like, "That's some incredible music. I'm a Prince fan for life now." That's my fan fiction anyway. Admiral Akbar becomes a huge Prince fan. That's kind of where it starts and ends. It's very short fan fiction. Yep. He's like, "What's a Corvette? Does he mean Carillion Corvette?" Little red Carillion Corvette. That
in my head, like for your fan fiction, Admiral Akbar has somebody trying to explain to him that he's not called Prince. He's now just this symbol. He's the artist formerly known as Prince. And he's like, that can't be true. And his friend's like, no, it's totally true. He's like, no, it's a trap. And
that's, it did. I felt like it did end up being a trap for Prince too, because he did go back to being Prince later on. He's like, oh, well, maybe this was like a little bit too cool, to just be known as a symbol. It was a neat symbol, but still, you gotta have a name. Otherwise, how can people describe you? You're like, oh, I'm a big fan of. Hold on, let me get you a pen. Let me get a pen and paper, and I'll draw this, and then you'll know who I'm talking about. We'll just have to call him the artist formerly known as Prince, which is what people did. Anyway,
that is what people did.
Thanks for tuning into the History of Prince podcast, where we discuss Prince and how he can be worked into Star Wars fan fiction. This will be a 6-hour podcast. Welcome to the first 10 minutes of it. But no, we do have a decent amount to talk about. We've got a K-poll to discuss. We've got some PQ news. We decided we would spend some extra time catching up on mailbag stuff, and we'd kind of just let this one be sort of free form. We kind of just talk about whatever came into our minds, which should be obvious at this point, if you're still listening.
Grimace, Akbar, and Prince, apparently.
Yeah. This is, man, the multiverse of madness, for sure. Or a crossover event of the century. McDonald's, Prince, and Star Wars.
they're gonna be in the new Avengers Secret War.
I was gonna say, are they all in Fortnite already? They might all already be in Fortnite.
I don't think Admiral Akbar is in Fortnite. A lot of the Star Wars characters
Star Wars stuff is in there. I mean, man, they would make a killing with an Admiral Akbar skin. Is McDonald's in Fortnite? I'm Googling it. I'm not a Fortnite kid, believe it or not.
I don't think I'm trying to. I play a lot with my kids, so I don't think that there's McDonald's. There are like Nike products, right? Like you can put Nike, all sorts of shoe brands, but it debuted with Nike. Mm-hmm. And there's like an emote where you show off your sneakers and all sorts of stuff. But I don't think that McDonald's has been there.
There was like the upside down McDonald's logo, like the W.C. Donald's collab, I think, or whatever. I don't know. Wasn't that like... I have no idea. Or is this just... Was this a Japan thing? I have no idea. It's been 84 years.
I'm actually kind of surprised that KFC hasn't joined them, because they do a ton with gaming marketing. They actually have a lot of crossovers and collaborations with games.
Burger
as weird
King,
as that is.
I mean, Burger King had an Xbox game. Sneak King. Do you remember that?
I do actually remember Sneak King. I also remember the Domino's Noid.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, food and games have gone back a long time. I mean, we had World of Warcraft, Mountain Dew collabs very recently, even like in the last year. But you used to be able to get your Mountain Dew bot in World of Warcraft and have it battle other people's Mountain Dew bots. That was the thing. So anyway, what I'm saying is Fantasy Flight. You gotta get some sort of food collab going. Maybe either on the sleeves, get Game Genic involved, or I don't know, some special prestige variants of it's like young Anakin in a pod racer, but he's going through like a drive-through of a fast food place. This is a Wisconsin brand technically, but I know there is a Rocky Rococo's in the Twin Cities area, which is for the two people out there that know what I'm talking about. And they're probably both in the Twin Cities area, or they're in Wisconsin. They know that it's the most delicious pizza on planet Earth. I've been trying to get their Twitter account to follow me forever. They won't do it. They have like 1,000 followers. They follow almost no one. Come on, Rocky Rococo's. I'm promoting you. I'm trying. Meet me in the middle.
Yeah.
Follow me on Twitter. Or X, I guess, as it's called now. As of a couple of years ago.
It's not. It's not now. It never will be.
We don't need that collab, though. Enough about them. But let's, you want to talk about the mailbag? Oh, no, let's not get there. Let's do Cave Poll first. Cave Poll.
Yes.
Cue the sound effect. Pretty basic cave poll question this time around. Just which new leader have you had the most? Which new leader have you had the most fun playing? Was I awake when I wrote that title?
I don't think so.
I'm like, yeah.
Neither one of us have been awake all week, sir.
That's really that is. I'll blame that on my toddler. Anyway, you get the idea. Which new leader have you had the most fun with since set 4 came out? The winner was Grand Admiral Thrawn, which I was a little bit surprised about. He is a fun leader, but I didn't think he'd take first. I knew it'd be pretty close, though. But when you look at this list here, as you look at the results, I don't think any of us should be really surprised that there were no votes for Admiral Holdo. If you're going to play Resistance stuff again, you're probably going to go Poe, right, if you really want to go Resistance Synergy. So there's that. Also, she's not the most popular character in Star Wars lore, so no big surprise there. But what anything else surprised you on this list here? I see a couple that kind of surprise me.
Yes, I mean there's one that definitely surprises me. I guess I should say two that surprise me, and that is the two people who voted for Rio Durant. What kind of sickos are out there enjoying playing Rio Durant?
Just love transports.
Yes,
what can you say?
My Rio Durant rant, if you will, is coming back. That guy is just not good.
No, he's not. He's not very good in limited. I don't think he's very good in constructed either. I mean, Saboteur is a strong ability to give something. Sometimes some decks it may not even matter at all if it has Saboteur or not. So yeah, I don't and transports interesting trait synergy, but again, I don't think that's super useful. I'm a little bit surprised that Han Solo never told me the odds only got one vote, because although I don't think it's the strongest deck, this poll was about what are you having the most fun playing. And I think a lot of people are attracted to a lot of the shiny new toys, right? This is like yet another Han Solo leader. He's harder to kind of wrap your head around from a deck building perspective than like the new Boba Fett is, which a lot of people voted for at 11. But I think he's probably a really fun deck. I think the thing is, I think he'd be a more fun deck if his ability wasn't just more or less giving something plus attack. I think that's actually something that pushes people away because we've got so many leaders that do that. Although he does let you peek at the top card of your deck, which is a big deal too. I think people see anything that says +1 attack now and they're like, well, there's a lot of leaders that do that, so I'm going to move on to something more quote-unquote unique. But I think the Han Solo leader is really unique, so I'm looking forward to doing some deck building with him eventually.
Yeah, I will also say I'm kind of surprised that Lando only has one vote.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy because he's actually good. He's actually a strong leader now.
He's like, in my opinion, he's kind of a fun build around. I know that his deploy is slow, but his ability is really strong, and he rewards you for, kind of splitting down the middle and having presence in both lanes, which I think is pretty cool. And yes, this set is putting a kind of a spotlight or a feature on the space arena, but I do think that it's kind of neat that he is allowing you to, still enjoy both sides of the game. But I just wouldn't have guessed that he would, only have one vote, but just also have less votes than Rio Durant. Less votes than even, Major Von Reg, Captain Phasma, etc. Like, I'm surprised he has one.
As someone who has built and played a couple different Lando lists, I actually had a lot more fun playing Lando than I thought I would. And the thing is, I think he's a pretty strong leader, just objectively, in a competitive sense. I think if you're looking for leaders that can do well into Jango Fett, I think honestly Lando's going to be one of your best bets. There was a Lando command deck that got top 4 in a tournament with a decent amount of players that I came across, and most of the other decks in the top 8 were Jango, right? It top 4'd, so it did beat a good amount of Jangos to get there. So if you're looking for, if you just want to play anti-Jango, I think Lando's a great option. Either Lando Blue or I played Lando Red. It did pretty well, but this Lando command deck, Commando, if you will, I think has some potential too, so I'm going to be exploring that again.
Yeah, it turns out if you have an opponent who wants to deal damage to your stuff to exhaust it, the best way to stop that is to shield up and not let them deal damage to your stuff.
Yep. Yeah, it turns out when all their units just do damage out of the gate like that, and then your shields block it all, they end up kind of having lesser, kind of lower stat value units across the board. In the meanwhile, you have giant units with Sentinel and healing, and you have your direct removal as well because you're in blue. So yeah, it's pretty decent. So I am looking forward to playing more Lando. The other one that kind of surprised me a little bit was how many people voted for the new Boba Fett. Just because I felt like, I mean, maybe I shouldn't be surprised because he's fun because he can just do a lot of damage, and you just keep turning him sideways, doing that extra indirect damage, watching your opponent sweat over it. I get how that's fun, I guess, but I feel like he's one of the more simple leaders in the set, and maybe that's just me, that I kind of am drawn to the leaders that require a little bit more like thought to I'm not saying Boba Fett players are lack brain cells. I'm just saying that bigger brain Star Wars Unlimited players will play something like a Darth Vader perhaps, or a Thrawn, or an Akbar maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I personally really like Boba Fett. I'm not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
He has some interesting builds. I know that I was talking to you about how I think that we might settle on double aggression Boba being incredibly strong depending on how the meta shakes out, but he was not my choice for the most fun though, because while I'm enjoying playing him, he is just kind of a raw numbers kind of leader. I'm finding.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
If you're coming from other games, like the way that I would describe the builds I'm seeing of the new Boba Fett leader right now is they are like Cheerios Briar from Flesh and Blood, where you are just jamming whatever stuff you can to essentially create the biggest number each turn as possible. And in his case, it's like the biggest number is like counting the indirect damage. Like you don't care whether or not it lands where you need it. You'll figure it out. You just want to make sure that one way or the other, you're making your opponent have to deal with the maximum amount of damage as possible. Yeah. And there is something kind of neat to that because I'm like an efficiency nerd and I like trying to figure out like what's that clear path to just making the big number. But I will say I voted for Thrawn. I keep tinkering with the deck. I think that he has a lot of potential. I like that you can play him controlling, but you can also play him kind of mid-rangey. He can be aggressive and punish some of the slower decks if they let him get out of control.
Yeah, for sure.
I just really enjoy what you can do where you kind of create these scenarios where your opponent is stuck making a very difficult decision of like, do I want to leave this annoying unit up or do I want to get rid of it knowing I'm going to take the double trigger? And then if they do leave it up and then you hit them with like the Chimera and then you get the trigger anyway, you can punish them for it, or you can feint having the Chimera and force them to get rid of something and then you just get a bunch of benefit anyway. Like it's a lot of fun to navigate those games. I've really been enjoying Thrawn.
Yeah, he's super cool. It's I think there's a high level of skill there too to navigate, how to put out your when defeateds, how to position them in a way that they'll go off in the order you need, what to use the ability on, what to not use the ability on in the case of multiple when defeateds. Really, really neat leader with a lot of cool play patterns. So I 100% endorse that pick. I picked Vader, of course, because I've just been kind of obsessed with that leader since it was announced, and I just have a ton of fun with making tokens. Building tokens again. This is the Wat Tambor player in me again, where I just really like all the shenanigans you can do with tokens, double green. Although I've been playing a lot of Vader Cunning lately now, as far as like testing that list out, and I think it's also just really, really fun to do some of the fun tricks that you can do with that. I might do a deck tech on it. Well, I definitely will do a deck tech on it. I said already I'm going to do a deck tech for every color for Vader. And so maybe I'll either do Cunning or Red next. Blue is the one I haven't really done a lot of testing yet with, but he's just a fun leader and you can build him a lot of different ways. So there's that. Kazuda Xiono seems really interesting. I wish I had time to like play all these leaders, by the way. Piet I've been wanting to play a ton. Like I mentioned, I'm going to build Poe soon. Wedge is cool. Like all the leaders in the set, or the vast majority of the leaders in the set are very appealing to me. We haven't even talked about Asajj.
Yeah.
Asajj is so good. How does she always get like forgotten? People just aren't as interested in her, but like she is a devastatingly good leader.
Yeah, I think that part of the problem is that I think she's very good, but she's kind of like the third wheel of where I imagine the meta is going to land. I think that ultimately, I think that there will still be a large number of leaders represented at events. I think that our diversity will still be fine. So when I'm saying this, I'm not saying like these are the only viable decks. I'm just speaking about popularity, right? But I think that Django will likely be one of the most popular lists. And then whatever ends up being the go-to counter in the community for Django will likely be second. And I expect that to either be Kira or Lando or some combination of decks that are, focusing on shielded units or ways to generate shields, because I think that's one of the easiest ways to handle that. And then, so your third point on the triangle is Asajj, because Asajj just punishes shielded stuff, because you invest so many resources into playing either shielded units where they have it innately but they have lower stats, or you pay the extra resource with like Lando to give the shield, and then she activates and she's like, okay, well, I don't cost a resource, I just cost a health on a unit.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just eat it. And I've had a lot of success with that. I think you and I actually played some games where I was on Asajj and was just eating shields. So
yeah,
I do think she's very strong. I just think that we're not far enough in the meta for folks to realize like where her best use case is.
I think there's a really, really good red-blue Asajj deck in there that runs, again, like Iden and Corvus and a lot of grit stuff. And I mean, she's very flexible. The fact that any leader that has an ability that doesn't cost any resources is automatically just like a step above a lot of other leaders. So the fact that she can do, because your damage is going to be good for you both ways if you build the deck properly, right? Because on the one side, you're going to be giving yourself grit probably. On the other side, or maybe taking out a when defeated that you want to trigger, or you're going to be, damaging them, right? I almost wonder if an Asajj green deck would work okay. Ping your own super laser technician. Play like some sort of Asajj ramp, actually. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, maybe.
Interesting. Yeah, what if you went to Asajj ramp? All right. Well, that's another thing to kind of think of. See, there's too many leaders to build, too many decks to try. Anyway, that's our cave poll. I think it's fun to see the big spread. Like, there's definitely a top end of this: Boba Fett, Vader, Thrawn, but there's a pretty even distribution across the rest of it, right? Where it's a pretty smooth transition from Kazuda down to the twos, right? So I think if you added on more votes, you'd probably still see the same kind of curve, but it's fun to see. Very neat. All right. So let's talk about Planetary Qualifier stuff. We got some Planetary Qualifier news. We know the cards that will be given out this time. Black 1 will be the promo card that everybody gets for participating, which is great. I think that's a super useful card.
It's a great card.
Yep, it's really good. Just the +1 for being upgraded is awesome, and then Poe is just kind of the icing on the cake, or it's core if you're running Poe, of course. And then Home 1, another really, really cool card. They really are I think crushing it with the OP cards this set. Like everyone I talk to is really excited about the cards that they are getting in the OP decks. It's exciting to open those packs again, especially because that Lando is out. Not that Lando, the Han is out there, right? I opened one non-foil. A friend of mine opened up the foil Han last night, so that's always exciting. But we get the Home 1 for our top cut prizing. Now, you might notice it says top 8. It's because they're not doing top 16 anymore. And a lot of people are upset by that. I am not, actually, because top 16 has never kind of traditionally been I think a big cutoff in at least a lot of the games I've played, right? It's much more about top 8, or making it to day 2 or something like that. So I actually don't mind them drawing the line at top 8. I think it is a little bit of a feels bad for the community to go from 16 to 8. You feel like you're taking away something then. And so I'm never going to be purely in favor of it from that perspective, because it's just, it's just not going to feel good. But at the same time, for me personally, I think it's fine. I don't think it's gonna have a tremendous impact on the game down the road or anything, but it is just a little feels bad. I'm not sure why they did it. Obviously, it's a lot less cards to print, I guess, is probably what it comes down to.
Cards printing, but also going to what you were talking about as well with the cutoff not traditionally being at top 16s. There are definitely events that I have been at where if somebody is just going to miss the cutoff for a top 8, they just drop and start their drive home early, right?
Right.
And being forced to like wait to the end because you might get a promo card, you might then just also run into people who are like, it's not even, worth it. Maybe I'm going to go or whatever. And it's just kind of like awkward, right? Whereas the top 8, because you're doing the cut to the top 8 to do the finals anyway, like all those people are sticking around. So I think that warrants looking at it like this. Now, for the Galactic Championship stuff where you're talking about like day 1, day 2, blah, 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 that makes sense to me because all of those people are like progressing through those cutoff moments of the tournament, right?
Yeah.
But this like top 16 thing was kind of weird before, and so I think that this is a fine change. Like, yes, less people get it, but I also I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I get why people are a little bit irritated by it, but I think it makes sense for all the reasons you mentioned, and just because it just feels more normal, right? Either way, now I got to work extra hard to get to top 8. I always have. I've always made top 8. But I, now I have to make sure I get there again. If I did it with Wat Tambor, I can do it with anybody, right? I got a top 4 with Wat Tambor. All right, moving on. There's the token. I actually really like this token. Normally, I'm kind of like, whatever when it comes to the acrylic tokens, but I like the space nature of this one. So this is another one I'm going to be really going for this time. And then our champion mats. You got the kind of key art Thrawn kind of art. I can't remember what card this is on, but it's a cool piece of art. What?
I was gonna say, is it art? I thought this was just the key art for the set.
That's what I was thinking, but usually we have something that comes from a card, but this does feel more key art than card art. That probably is the case. Either way, it's a neat playmat. If you're the champion, you get one. And that's about that. So enjoy, I do like that it's got the all the markings of, designating when you get it. Neat collector's item. There you go. That's the news about the PQ. The one thing I did kind of want to mention PQ wise, we'll go back to the other camera here, is just the number of PQs that we're getting. I was hoping it would be more by this point, if I'm honest. Being in the Los Angeles area, and we still really only have one, and it's kind of far away from like the center of the Los Angeles area this time. And I've heard it's a great store. I haven't gotten to be there myself, but I've heard nothing but good things about that store. But at the same time, like, it's a lot of people I know in the community are like, oh man, we got to drive even farther now, and it's only one. And a lot of times, the last couple times with LA, like, it's sold out super fast, and a lot of people I know were like, well, I guess I hope I get in next set, or else I'll drive like 2 to 3 hours to go to another one, So I think some attention does need to be paid for like those more populous areas to find more locations for PQs, especially in a place like the LA area. I'm sure a lot of other big cities are feeling it too. We've seen the number of PQs go up a lot worldwide, which is great. But we haven't seen any increase at all, I believe, between set 3 and set 4. I think we're at 65 in North America for both set 3 and set 4. So I would have liked to see more. Again, this is season 0 of the game for the competitive side of things. It is year 1 season. They've talked very openly that they just want to try things and then see what works, see how they need to change things for the next year of Star Wars Unlimited. So I'm not going to be too harsh on it, but I just like to see more PQs, I think a lot more people want to play in them. It's an exciting time. I had a ton of fun last time I played in one. I just want to have, more opportunities for that because I think you'll fill it. I don't think you're going to have a lot of PQs that are going to be in big cities like this. I know LA can fill at least 2 of them. if not 3, if given the opportunity. So just a hope for mine. A fingers crossed that in future sets we'll get a few more in bigger metropolitan areas.
Yeah, you and I were talking before we started recording. Michigan gets one more again. This time it is going to be in a suburb of Detroit, but thankfully it's in a location where should be able to house a good chunk of people. It's a space that has done a large number of big events in the past, so I'm really looking forward to that. I obviously wish that there were more in my state, just like you, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's and I have no idea what determines, how many planetary qualifiers there will be, where they'll be. I don't know how any of that process works, but I'm just hoping over time we can expand it as because I again, at least where I'm at, there's a ton of interest and there's a lot of people that don't get in every single set. And that's another kind of feels bad that kind of pushes people away from the game. So I hope we can kind of rectify that, because that's the real danger. Is people like, well, if I'm just not going to have a chance to get in these anyway, then and competition is my goal, then why play? Which I think most players are going to be playing because they like the game more than just wanting to purely compete. But there are those players out there, and I've heard that firsthand from some people that they're like, well, I'd love to take this game more seriously, but the tournament opportunities just aren't there right now. And maybe there'll be more chances in the future for them to come back. I think that's the plan, I think. So hopefully that's what we'll see. Yeah. Like I said, small gripe, but I wanted to bring it up because it's definitely been a topic of conversation at like every local I've been at in this area, at least. So moving on, I mean, we could just jump into the mailbag now. Otherwise, unless there's something else you want to talk about Star Wars related, this is kind of a free form show. We can talk about anything we want.
Well, I mean, if we want to talk about anything Star Wars related.
Oh yeah. Can I guess what you're gonna say?
Maybe.
Is it about Andor season 2 coming out soon?
Yes.
Yes. That's exciting. Less than a month now. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, I am so excited. I adore Rogue One. I loved Andor season 1.
Mm-hmm.
I am just full bore excited for this. I'm a little sad knowing, again, that this will be the end, right? Like we get season 2 and I know that it wraps up, but
right.
I love the characters. And I'm also, I'll be honest, I was thinking about it because it was coming up. I am looking forward to seeing some of those characters pop up in the game, right? Obviously, we have Andor, and part of that's from, Rogue One, and we have Mon Mothma, and she's from other films and stuff as well. But I do think that there are some characters from the show that would be worthy of cards at some point and would make great additions. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. And I'll be honest, I'm really just looking forward to getting the full K2SO, how they become friends moment,
Yeah. We're due for another K2SO card for sure. But getting Luthen in as a character, his ship, right? His ship has a bunch of cool stuff with it. Definitely do that. I'm trying to remember, why am I blanking on the name of the not the Imperial guy, but the guy, Cyril. Yeah. What a cool character, but also one that you could do a neat card of, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's some pretty cool characters. I do think that the Imperial person that you were referencing is also fine. I am drawing a blank on his character's name now.
Cyril Karn, the guy who starts out as the security officer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's what you're saying. Sorry. The
ISB agent?
It's what, Deidre,
yes, right? I believe that's right. Deidre. Yeah. It's been a while since I watched season 1.
Yeah. So when you said his name, for some reason, because they're kind of close, I was like, no, I thought that's the ISB. Yeah, the ISB agent. So Deidre. I love her character, and I would love to see her show up in SWU at some point as well.
But there's a lot of bit characters you could make cards of too, like the whole team that did the heist in the first half of the season last time, right? Like every one of those characters could be a card for sure, So I think there's a lot of options there. So hopefully we'll get that in the game at some point.
So Andor's friend Bix, her friend Vel, right? They're both neat characters. But yeah, like the whole heist thing as well. Yeah, there's just
The droid.
I just want them. Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah, that'd be neat. I just want the show to come out. I'm actually glad that it's ending after 2 seasons, because I think one of the things that happens with shows these days is that it goes too long and they kind of run out of things to do. And like you get situations like Mandalorian, right, where that was originally written to be 2 seasons, and if you look at the end of season 2, it really does feel like an ending, right? That is the ending of the show. But then they're like, oh man, everybody loves Grogu, and we got to sell more Grogu stuff, so make another season. And then season 3 just really meandered, and it just didn't work for me. And so I feel like that's a show that could have benefited from just kind of ending after season 2. But now we have a movie coming too, so who knows?
Yeah.
Will it ever end with the Mandalorian? Probably not.
I mean, probably not. And I'm okay with that, but I do kind of agree with you in that perhaps the initial run, if you will, of The Mandalorian should have just been 2 seasons, and then it almost should have been like a reset. One of the things that I think some production companies could be a bit more bold about, especially when I'm talking about like the Disney-owned stuff, because Star Wars has this big expanded universe. Marvel has this big expanded universe. They have these things where they're intertwined. And so when you have those, I do understand from a corporate level that you want to go with your brand recognition. And so you want people to know like, hey, The Mandalorian is The Mandalorian. But I would love to instead see things where it might be a continuation, but you still get like a new name or moniker because it could also be its own self-contained thing. And I think that the case for something like that would be like Rebels, because you could make the argument that Rebels is really just an extension of Clone Wars, but it's also its own thing, and it is fantastic. Like I love Rebels, right? I think that, you know, it might not have been what I wanted for the character, but I think that even just doing things like the Book of Boba Fett, where it's still also kind of a continuation, but it's its own self-contained thing, could be good. I just need it to be a little less off the mark.
As much fun as the heroism leader is in the game, I think Boba Fett's story should have ended with a plunge into the Sarlacc. And just stop there.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I think that for a lot of people, the part of the reason that I think that Book of Boba Fett felt like it missed the mark is because specifically, you know, because he's the heroism leader, right? Like it was a redemption arc of sorts, and he's, you know,
it didn't make any sense.
He wasn't that prior. He's not like, I don't think people wanted him to be a hero who were Boba Fett fans. And if you would have told me, you know, again, before seeing it, right? Like if I just say to you, hey, Boba Fett returns and he's trying to take control of the criminal underworld, like just that as a concept sounds great.
Right.
It just like the weird
not that
redemption arc and Tusken Raider thing, and trying to like be still somehow good, but a leader in the underworld. Like that's the part that didn't fit. Right. So
trying
if
to
you would
make
have just given us, you know, Sons of Anarchy, but in Star Wars, and instead it's, you know, the gangs on Tatooine. That's what I wanted. You know, it doesn't even have to be, you know, the as mature rated as Sons of Anarchy, but just like that is the premise, right? You can still keep it family friendly, but have it just be, hey, this is, you know, he's still not a good guy.
It's
like
the underworld. Yeah. I don't know why we had to try to make Boba Fett a good guy. Like he can still be a cool character and not be a hero, right? And just there's no evidence, not a shred, not a single iota of evidence in the history of this character that he would ever change so completely. And I think that's what rubbed people the wrong way the most, is that it's just not the same character. You know, that's why a lot of people don't like Luke in Jedi, because it's just not a realistic advancement of that character based on what we know. You know, we're supposed to take so many things just for granted, like, oh, well, like, trust me, he just feels this way now. It's like, well, you didn't show me how that occurred, you know, and just kind of hanging out with some Tusken Raiders. That doesn't sound like something he would really, you know, care about to begin with anyway. So, yeah, anyway, that show did not work. But it had a couple good Mandalorian episodes in the middle, I guess, of it, which is extra weird. But I will say this, and I've said this before, My favorite part of Book of Boba Fett, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but are the mods. The street racing, like brightly colored speeder bike, cyborg kids. Because I think that was, and I've said this before, I think that was the most Star Wars thing that happened in that show. Because if you think about the history of Star Wars, the history that it comes from, disaffected youth, hot rod racing, all that kind of stuff, like this was pure, the concept of disaffected, youth on Tatooine that were tired of their drab surroundings, and they wanted to rebel against the culture that they found themselves in by being brightly colored and brash and loud and doing all this kind of stuff. Like that makes a lot of sense to me from a Star Wars perspective specifically. And it seems very George Lucas-y, to do it that way, which you can't get much more Star Wars than George Lucas-y, right? So I think that was a great concept. Again, the execution was not there, but like conceptually, I think that's great. And I would have loved to have a whole show of that concept, not those characters maybe, but the concept that those characters represented.
I actually even think that some of the characters would have been fine if they just didn't put them in the weird situations they got put in because of everything else that happened. Like,
yeah, that's very
none
fair.
of the even like characters really necessarily rubbed me the wrong way as much as it was just the way that they got thrown into stuff and then how they reacted. But I'm with you. I thought, because again, like it's a kind of like their version of like a street gang thing, disaffected youth, like you said. I liked seeing cybernetic stuff, because like historically in Star Wars we know that they exist, but it's either like we get General Grievous, who's like mostly that, or it's just like your Jedi who loses a hand every other episode. Right. But I liked kind of seeing the kind of like everyman's application of that sort of technology and how it would be used. And I also, you're talking about the George Lucas feel. To me, it felt like American Graffiti.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So if you're not familiar, that's another film that George Lucas did in the 70s before Star Wars, actually. And it has that vibe to me. So to me, they were just like the American Graffiti kids in the Star Wars universe. I think you're right. I think it was the most George Lucas-y,
it was the most classically
Star Wars thing.
The most classically Star Wars thing. Maybe not modern Star Wars, but the most classically Star Wars element of that show for sure. And I love the you could have them getting mixed up with the true underworld, right, where they're in over their heads and they have to find a way to like satisfy this crime lord, or everybody dies or something like that. Someone's taken hostage, that basic kind of story, right, where it's nothing new, but it'd be fun to see it in that setting. Have like Thundercat be the guy that patches up their electronics here and there. In case you're not aware, the Doctor in Book of Boba Fett is a very, very famous jazz bass player called Thundercat, who makes a lot of awesome music. But have him be a reoccurring character that sort of like patches him up and stuff. I think that'd be great. Like, I would write that show if they asked me to write that show.
I love the idea of a group of young friends kind of living on the streets who all have big dreams, and then as they get involved with the various gangs, they like slowly get pulled apart. Like that classic story of like, we always said we'd stick together, and then two of them end up on a rival side, somebody's trying to mediate, and then
that's season
maybe
2.
They find their way back together.
See, that's season 2
in the end.
You have a 3-season arc with this overall, and if this ever gets made, you out there who are listening right now, where it came from originally. But season 1 is the disaffected youth, the American Graffiti, the Midnight Club, the Tokyo Drift, right? The street racing, the rebellion against society, et cetera, et cetera. Towards the end of the season, things start to get real, and that's what pulls the group apart, right? The lure of wealth and real power in various gangs pulls them apart. And so season 2 is the friends who have now become rivals, right? Across these multiple gangs on Tatooine, and then so the you see people fighting who you don't want to see them fighting each other, because deep down they're friends and all that, but they're pushed in this position where they maybe they do, one turns bad and one doesn't want to, but they feel forced because of X and Y, and then at the end of the season you have where like this friction in the friend group isn't sustainable again, and they come together, but at the cost of now everyone's in danger because they've angered multiple crime organizations. And then season 3 is either the attempted escape from that, or how do you take down whoever the big bad is within these crime gangs, right? So you've actually got a really nice 3-season story arc with this concept too. You know, now that we've fleshed this out a little bit. Yeah. Again, maybe I should just write this.
Well,
let us know in the comments below. We'll just do it. Yeah, we'll co-write it, and we'll get it on Disney Plus or HBO or something like that. I don't know, and we'll go from there, and we'll bring back Thundercat, and we'll bring back. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. No, I know exactly where you're at with that. That I appreciate that.
The Thunder one there for a minute.
Right. We'll set this on Thundera, and we bring back Cad Bane as well, because he died like way too easy in like the first episode of that show or whatever.
Look, if Boba Fett can come back,
exactly,
Cad Bane can come back.
Merely a flesh wound. Just tell us he's got like a heart in like a different part of his body or something, and so he's fine. You know. Do an alien, biology thing to bring him back, because he's great, fun leader in the game. Well, that was a fun conversation, wasn't it?
We should write more stuff.
We should. Well, I'll get to the pod racing series soon, I promise. Let's do some mailbag stuff. We said we would catch up on the mailbag stuff. It's time to catch up on the mailbag stuff. Gonna go back and look at 4 questions today, and again, join our Discord if you want to. Have your question answered, have us talk about it. So we've got 4 things to talk about today. The first one is from Maverick98, who asks, as I know y'all are big limited players, in a new rules note, it stated booster packs being used in a draft play are not owned by any individual player. A card is owned by a player once that player picks the card from their current pack or a selection of leaders. So if you had the God draft and drew 2 showcases in your initial 3 packs, do you pass one? Or do you argue to keep them both? If you pass one, which showcase would you keep over all others? So a couple different questions here. I do think, I wonder if that's ever happened in a draft where someone's opened 2 showcases out of that. I really doubt it, but I do see the logic there. I think if I open a showcase in a draft, I would just obviously keep that card regardless of what I played. Like, obviously, if I pulled 2 though, honestly, I'd pick the one I like the better and I'd pass the other one. I think it's just if you're playing draft, it's the luck of the draw, and you just got to abide by the spirit of the rules, even if the letter, might have been where you could technically keep it, right? I think I think people will think you're a lot. They'll want you to come back to that store a lot more if you do the honorable thing and pick one and pass the other.
Let me ask you a hypothetical question.
Sure.
Right? Because I'll be honest. I think that this rule likely exists primarily for higher level competitive events.
I would agree.
If I'm being honest, I think at your local store, usually you've got a pretty core audience. Like, the rule needs to exist so that you always have something to fall back on. That's the other reason that it's here. But for the most part, people have a close knit community, or if somebody new does come in, folks are reasonable. I think at a local level, this will matter a lot less. But let's just say it's year 3 of the Galactic Championship, and limited is now part of it, right? Like, you do X number of rounds of constructed, and then you do a cut to some drafts for day 2, let's say, right?
Which so I'm against, by the way, but that's a whole different conversation.
No,
go ahead. I know you are. Are.
So, but let's say you're in this situation. So you're at the event and you open out of your 3 packs 2 showcases, but they're also not great limited leaders. And then the third one is a really good limited leader. In a competitive environment, would you have the guts to pass 2 showcases
if I'm there to compete?
Keep the competitive.
If I'm there to compete, absolutely. Especially with the prices of showcases coming down now, which I think is great, by the way. I think that's awesome that the alt-art leaders are becoming more accessible for people that want to play that and haven't pulled it themselves. As a little side there, but yeah, man, if I'm there to compete, I'm there to compete, and I will pass 2 showcases if they are not, something that's going to help me win. 100%. I absolutely would do that. Would you?
I think it would depend on whether the quote unquote bad limited leader also was one of my favorite characters.
Sure. I mean, you can always make that choice, but if you're there
But
to
yeah, I
compete.
think most of the time I would also just take the competitive option, because it's the same thought, right? Like if I'm at a big event like that, like I'm there to compete.
Like the other part of the question is, if you do pass one, which showcase would you keep above all others? Which is kind of just asking us, what's our favorite showcase? What's your favorite showcase?
I mean Sabine, because I still don't own one, and it's my favorite character.
Oh,
So
okay. I don't know. Man, I'd say probably Green Vader at this point. Although having a Wat Tambor showcase would be really cool too. Yeah, but probably Green Vader right now. Yeah. Interesting question though. Interesting rule, but I do think it is going to be useful for fringe scenarios down the line. I think they're good at kind of predicting that stuff. Moving on to our second question in the mailbag from Chosen One Charlie. Eventually, somebody's going to have a name that I'm going to regret reading. Every time I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I'm not saying something accidentally. With sectors, regionals, and galactic events right around the corner, how do you all travel with your cards? Air travel and even just the locals? I'm talking bags, baby. How do you travel with your cards, Charmer?
I always put my stuff in a backpack. So like when I'm flying or whatever, it's my personal item, because I never want to check stuff if I can help it.
Right.
I don't trust it to get lost. I don't want to show up at an event and not be able to play all of the sudden. I've had bad experiences with that in the past, because I had when I was flying internationally once for an event, it was in my carry-on and not in my backpack. And so I had one of those scenarios where they were still doing like forced checks of even the carry-ons, right? Because the plane was too full, sort of thing. So then so then my carry-on got checked, and then sure enough, like didn't show up. So ever since then, it's now, I just have like a card game backpack that I just like dedicate, and then whatever event I'm going to, I put stuff in and out of. So right now it's actually, I was using this like gray backpack I've been using for the last like years and years and years, but I realized that I had, from my time when I was casting and covering Legends of Runeterra, I had a Legends of Runeterra backpack, and I was like, oh, I want to use the card game backpack for card gaming. So I've switched to that and put everything in there. I still I need to keep forgetting, but I need to remember to order the like good backs for pinning things, because I also still have all of our pins from our event in Minnesota where it's got the different aspects, and my goal is I'm going to pin those and some of the other pins I have from other card games on the outside as well, and just going to be my card game backpack going forward.
Yeah, I'm in kind of a similar spot. It's funny, I'm in a very similar spot in that I was forced to, I didn't have enough room for all my card game stuff after an event. A lot of stuff I'd bought at the event, some boxes and things, that I had my carry-on, and then they made me check it, and then they lost it. But the worst part about this scenario is that they found it later because I complained on Twitter about it. And then they sent me my bag back, and everything was in there except all the card game stuff had been taken. So somebody went through my bag somewhere along the line. Someone from American Airlines, by the way, someone at American Airlines, I want to say very clearly, stole a bunch of my cards. And so that was very frustrating to go through. So yeah, from now, after that, I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to stuff absolutely everything I can in my backpack, no matter what, and just kind of refuse to check my bag if I have anything really valuable in there. And be like, no, I'm just not doing it. But yeah, it's funny. I've had that same bad situation. But I also don't bring as much as I used to either. I only bring the bare minimum if I ever travel for card game stuff. Not a single extra card I don't absolutely need with me.
Mine varies. When I'm flying, I don't take anything that I can't fit in my backpack, and I try to take the bare minimum, and try, because there are times where like I'm paranoid about foils. Like I'm one of those people that, I like my shiny cards, but I also play with my cards, right? So if I get a cool foil, like it, I use double sleeves, but like it gets sleeved up and I play with it. But when I'm going to competitive events, there's always that fear that, if they do a judge deck check or whatever, then because of the curling and foiling, I'm always afraid they're going to do something. So sometimes I'll bring like spares or extras if they, Judge wants me to swap them out. But
Sure.
I'm usually pretty good about, like I said, I double sleeve everything, which helps with the foiling. I do like routine presses to get all the air out, all that stuff, because like the shiny cards are cool and I want to play with the cool shiny stuff. So
yeah, same. I found if you keep them just tight in a box, they just don't curl, I just always keep them, locked tightly away. But yeah, I've got a backpack made by Toomey. I have a couple Toomey bags. I really love that brand. That stuff lasts forever. Super durable. I definitely would trust all my cards in it. And I've been all over the world with it, and it's held up. So as far as bags go, that's the brand I recommend. Endorse us, Toomey.
Yeah,
partnerships are available.
I was gonna say, as far as stuff that goes in my bag, that's all GameGenic stuff. So if you're looking,
oh yeah, same.
You're looking for sponsors for the podcast. Yes. Let me just say, I use the GameGenic deck boxes. I use their tokens. I even use their tubes for my play mats because they're the hexagon and they're slightly bigger, so I find them easier to get my mats in and out of. Some of the other brands, they're like either a bit smaller or they have like that weird triangle shape, and then I don't know if it's just like old age or too much head trauma, but like sometimes I just can't get it out. And the GameGenic ones are real easy. So
there you go. Yeah, I just picked up the Akbar sleeves yesterday. The It's a Trap sleeves. Anyway, our next question for the mailbag is from Lights Out. I don't know if I missed it or not in a previous episode, but wondering if you both have any plans to trek out to various large events this year. Denver, Richmond for sectors, Minneapolis for regionals, Vegas for the Galactic Championship. If so, would it be cool to have some kind of meetup? It would be cool to have some kind of meetup. Always good to see groups of friendly card gamers playing faces in advanced or serious competition. I've been thinking about this a little bit, actually, and we've talked about going to a couple of the ones. I think we both definitely plan on being in Vegas. That's the Galactic Championships. You got to be there. So I think we're both planning on being there. I would really love to be in Minneapolis, but
I was going to say, I think you and I were talking at one point about maybe trying to hit that one together.
Yeah. But I think what it would be fun, and don't take this as something that's going to happen because it's logistically, I've not even started to think about how to actually make this happen. But I would love to do like a live recording of Ice Cave Radio, like at the somewhere nearby. If we can't do it in the venue, do it somewhere nearby, like rent a conference room in the hotel or something like that, and then see if anyone shows up. But it'd be fun to do. It'd be fun to do something like that. Do like live Q&A, maybe get some of the players, the devs that are at the event on the show. I think that'd be really fun to do a live recording of this. So that's something I want to look into.
Well, I know you and I both have those lapel mics.
Oh yeah.
So I've got the tech.
Yeah, we've got the tech. The equipment is not the issue.
We have the technology.
That's right. The issue is finding a place. Game to guess. But anyway, I think that's a good question. We'd love to do it. Either way, if you see us at those events, feel free to come up and say hi. Of course, we like to say hi to you too. Final question from Lightsaber Larry. Welcome back. Do you think there should be do you think there should have been cash prizing included for the Galactic Championships? My answer to that is maybe yes, maybe no. I would like there to be, but at the same time, that makes things very, very difficult on the legal side for the company putting that on, because you run afoul of a lot of like gambling laws and things like that in a lot of states. So I think it's just a legal like viper's den that most companies don't want to go into right now with card games, and where a lot of this is marketed towards minors, that makes it extra challenging, right? So I would love to see financial incentives for our best players, because I think that's a great way to appreciate the work and then also spur the competitive community to get even bigger and better. But it's a double-edged sword, right? So I would love to see it. I don't know if I would love to see it enough to overcome the logistical hurdles, but maybe if the game's big enough someday, maybe there's a way to do it. I'm not opposed to it. Coming from esports, obviously we had cash prizes for everything, right? So it can work. But again, just a lot of logistical loops to jump through. What do you think?
I mean, I'll just start with saying I'm with you. I would like to see it. I think that the stuff that you get for winning is very, very cool. Don't get me wrong.
For sure.
I just try to put myself like in the player's shoes, and I'm of two minds. Like, if you're just somebody who is there for the competitive side and you are likely just going to sell your winnings, then I think that it's probably fine right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for somebody like myself who, if I won something cool like that, I don't think I would want to sell this stuff. Like, I would want to keep that as like a keepsake, a memory, whatever. And so, like, let's just say hypothetically, I show up and I top 8 or I do whatever, and I have now the cards, but I had to spend money on plane and hotel and all of that other stuff as well. So even if it's not a large amount of money, even if it was like just enough where, like, if you placed decently high enough, it maybe covered some of the travel costs, I think that would be good. I don't think that it would have to be like a massive prize pool or anything, because I do think that this game is also intended to be a bit more casual, right? You kind of have to, when you're in the card gaming space, know what your lane is, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I think this game has great competitive fundamentals, and it could absolutely be a fantastic competitive card game if they did want to put the focus there. But it's something that has to be part of like the vision of the overall game, right? I think of, obviously I think the direct comparison right now to make is like Flesh and Blood in my mind when it comes to like competitiveness is head and shoulders above the rest, strictly because that is their lane. Like, they have said from the get-go, we intend this to be competitive. Everything they have done is competitive. And you were talking about the legal side. They're, again, a great example. They just recently got the approval to run cash tournaments in Germany. And if you're not from the card game space, like, that's a huge deal, because they essentially had to prove that that game is a game specifically of skill and not chance. Huge companies in the TCG space have still not all got the ability to run, cash events in Germany. But again, Flesh and Blood, they said, this is our priority. And so they went through all of the hoops, presented all of the data, made their argument just so that they could also run events there.
Right.
This game, again, has the fundamentals, could absolutely be a competitive juggernaut, but it's also a very beloved IP. It's a kid-friendly franchise. It's meant to be played with family and friends. It's got the cool Twin Suns format. So even though it can be hyper competitive, and I still appreciate that they are supporting that competitive environment, there is also very clearly that design initiative and just like vision of the game of it also being something that is not sweaty all the time, right? So
I think the other thing to think about too is when you're fighting for something like this, who are you fighting for? Because the players who only care about like ROI, you hear players talk about return on time investment, they are going to know which games they can go play right now to go get that ROI, right? There are card games out there where the winner cards go for $20,000, right? So that game is the game they're probably going to play if they only care about turning the time with the game into money, right? I don't think that's a big draw for a lot of Star Wars Unlimited players. I think a lot of players want to be the best, but they're not necessarily, they're not only playing it to make the money, right? And that's fine, right? So if you're a fan of Star Wars Unlimited and you want to be critical because there's no cash prizing, like, I would ask, who are you really fighting for? Like, are you that player? Well, then you should probably be playing the other games that you already can make way more money in, right? If that's all you care about. And, are there even players in this game at all who only care about ROI? Probably not that many. So if you're going to be upset about something on behalf of someone else, make sure that person actually exists, is what I'm saying. Because I'm not sure there's a ton of players that really are demanding a ton of ROI in this game, right? If they care that much, they'd already be playing another game more seriously, And again, I think this game could be that game. This game could be that game. But I think, like Charmer mentioned, there's a lot of reasons why. It'll be competitive, but we'll never see like $1 million prizes and all that. And, maybe we don't need to. There you go.
I demand it.
I would, again.
I expect.
I would love to see it. I think that Some people say competition brings out the worst in people. I like to think competition brings out the best in people. You are always going to have those bad actors in every card game, no matter how serious, no matter how casual. There's always going to be those people. And so it's, you got to have the rules set, and you got to have the personnel and the judge staff, and you have to have the calm minds within the company to handle those situations when they occur, because they're always going to happen. But I think the higher the stakes, the better, in my mind, having been in competitive gaming on the esports side for over a decade now. The higher the stakes, the better the players, the better the stories, the more entertaining it'll be, the more fun everyone will have. It's the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat from, traditional sports, right? Like, we've got all that too in gaming if we want it, and it's just as good here. And so I'm always in favor of higher stakes, bigger tournaments, bigger prizes, but you just have to have the right infrastructure for it, So we'll see. I'm not going to lose sleep about it either way, honestly.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think the happy median is not cash prizes, but if you win, you get a Millennium Falcon, a working Millennium Falcon.
What about, I would take a one of one Millennium Falcon champion card. That I think that would be good.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I just want something huge.
A tauntaun.
I will say this, like, I've made jokes about this, but I love winning oversized novelty checks. That's part of the thing for the for like the cash pricing. So maybe if it's not like actually cashable, but it'd be cool if they did something where they give me an oversized check for like Republic credits or whatever, just as part of the winnings. Like, I would absolutely pay to have it shipped home or make it fit on the plane somehow. Like, I would be down for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That I just make it a playmat, an oversized.
No, I want the big oversized
big check, right?
Yeah,
the surfboard size ones. Yeah, we should do that. Well, we'll let them know. But yeah, that's a good question. I think that's a fun topic of conversation, and that does it for all of our mailbag stuff for this week. And so on that note, I think that does it for this episode. We're just a little over an hour, so I think we filled some time pretty well. Hopefully enjoyed listening to us. Any final thoughts on anything we talked about, Charmer, before we close this one out? If not, I'll just say icecaveradio.com, join our Discord, go buy the merch, support us on various platforms, like, subscribe, all that stuff. It does help us grow as people, but also as a channel. And thanks for listening more than anything. And thanks for chatting in the Discord. It's been a ton of fun getting to know people. And on just kind of upkeep notes, Conquer the Cave is coming back very, very soon. So if you've been waiting for that, it's coming soon. And we're starting to put up more deck tech stuff. I didn't get to record any footage at my local last night because it was all draft, and I didn't think those games were that good. But going forward, hopefully we'll have more local competition to put up there too. And as PQ season starts, hopefully a lot of good PQ footage as well. So yeah, we got a lot of that coming. But Charmer, say the line. Unless you have something else to say. But if you don't,
I do have something else to say.
Go for it.
Because I want it on the record.
Do it.
I love you, buddy. I appreciate you.
Oh, well, thank you. I love you too, man. It's been great doing the show. We're just getting started, right?
Yeah, but also very specifically for you.
Oh.
May the force be with you.
I'm touched.